Okay, good evening. We are holding here Matzah Yom Tov, beautiful Pesach Baruch Hashem. We're starting from that Gemara that Vav Manal, and Be'ez Hashem, if time permits, we're going to go down to Zion and Beis in the bottom. We have two blot and get back on track. The Mishnah. So we're discussing the women who have issues. Again, we're in the Masechta Sotah, and we're discussing the Sotah process. Just to clarify, the Sotah process is not meant to stop her. We don't want to punish her. We want to clarify the whole idea why Hashem allows His name to be erased is not to punish a woman publicly. It's to clarify and to allow her to be mutter to her husband if she's innocent. And this is the only way to do it through the process. Now, the process ends up being a process that belittles her and demeans her and is designed to make her admit her guilt, which would then make her not drink and be ushered to her husband permanently in that way. But this, so the Gemara is going to discuss this mission, next mission, part of that process. The following women are asked to eat truma. In other words, permanently. We discussed over here that from as soon as she does stira, she's also to eat truma and she's also to her husband. But over here, we're talking about permanently. If something happens, then she's out the door and she's also permanently. The elu, versus malacha v'tumah ha'meres tamei lach. I'm tummy too. I was takamazana v'shabo edim shahi tamei. And if edim come and say she was tummy v'meres eini shaysev, she just refuses to drink, but she doesn't admit guilt, but she refuses to drink. In that case, she just packs up and leaves. V'shabala eina reitza la'ashkaisa. And if her husband says, "I don't want to put my wife through this. I just want to call it quits." Now, again, in that case, he has to pay her ksuba. But we're not discussing Hilchas Ksuba now, but she is usher, they have to get divorced, and she cannot eat truma anymore if she's married to a kain. And if the husband has relations with her on the way up into to Shlapet to Bezin, which we're going to just bring it in the next mission, that he has to take her to Bezin and how they make sure that he try to make sure that he doesn't do this because that messes up the whole site process and the waters don't work anymore. But if he's boiler or if he decides just that he doesn't want to make her drink, he has to divorce her and she's also for truma al-alam to eat by him. Rav Sheshes told us something, and he was ma'ir our eyes to the Mishnah. In other words, he said his memra and then explained how he sees it from our Mishnah. Sotah sheish la'edim. So this is the memra. Sotah sheish la'edim b'medina sayam, and Sotah has edim. That medina sayam is lav dafka. Medina sayam means edim that did not come to Bezin to testify that she was mizana. So she was mizana with Ruvain in front of two people, and her husband saw the stira and shlops it to Bezdin. It doesn't have to be he even saw that Maisa. It could be he saw the stira, a different stira with Ruvain, and he shlops it to Bezdin. But the edim never came forth and said she was mizana. So if the Ein Hamayim Boitkanai said the waters do not check her in that case, by time of the Amakra, V'nistra, V'hinitma, V'ein Eidba, the elected the Yadaba, that nobody knows about it. He brings a line from this passage that says there's no Eidim. We learned already that the Ein Eidba, that the Eid Echad is Neman to ask her that she can't eat, she can't take the Beisait anymore. But we learn an additional, the Pasha of the Pasuk just says that nobody knows about it. And nobody knows about it comes to say that this process only starts if there's nobody knows about it. So if there's two Eidim that know about it, even though they're not here and they did not testify, the Mesaita will not work. Fine. So this Isha that she has two Eidim and they're just not here to testify. And he showed us this halacha from the Mishnah, which obviously the Mishnah we just said does not say this outright. The Tani, where the Mishnah says as follows: the asu, so the Mishnah said that Adam came to be that and said she was a tamei. For the asu Adam emas. When did the Adam come? He named the tishti if they came before she drank zainahi. We don't need a Mishnah to tell us that because we just said if she says tameani, she doesn't drink, and if she says tameani, she's usher. So what am I adding by two Adam coming? Ella lebasa this after she drank. Now, if they came after she drank and waters check her and nothing happened to her, then if it's good if you say that the waters don't take effect because Adam know about it, shopper, then it makes sense and the Adam are believed. In other words, what to say Adis about? Adam come and say she was Mizana. If you're going to say that the waters don't check her, then it makes sense why she's still around. But if you're going to say I'm my boy, can I say I'm afraid this is Hadishakininu. by the fact that they're coming and the woman's still alive and she drank, if what you're saying is true, she'd be dead. So it must be that the waters don't work and there's Adam. And when they come to say Adam, they're like, oh, that's why it didn't work like Chatchila. Because there's Adam, they just weren't here. So now that they come, it's not muchlach that they're lying. Again, if you say that the waters worked, even if there's Adam, then the fact that when Adam come after she drinks, obviously they're lying because she's not dead. And if the waters work, she should be dead if what you're saying is true. Amalei Rav Yosef says that's not a raya. Maybe the mayim are baitikar. How could she still be alive? But maybe she has a schus. There's a machlekes later on in the Masechta. We're gonna touch on that here for a little bit. When does that machlekes whether a woman has she has a certain schusim if the mayim marim the meisaita will hold off a little bit. So if you say that they hold off, so Rabbi Yosef says no. The mayim could be taled as chosvar. In that case, they could. So it's not a raya that it doesn't work because of Adam, because maybe it's not working because of the zchus. So let's analyze this machlekes between Rabbi Yosef and Risheshus. The misnavna the Rebbe, the Tanan, we have machlekes between Rebbe and Rabbanan and Rav Shimon later on. The Tanan Rebbe Aimer zchus taila b'mayim hamarim. Zchus taila is taila b'mayim hamarim, but she does not have any more children after this incident. She doesn't get better. She doesn't heal. Ella misnavna v'halacha. She gets worse and worse. She deteriorates from that moment. And at the end of the day, she's not at the end of the day that day, but at some point, she's going to die from the same misa that she would have died. So the Schush just buys her a few months or whatever it is to get her affairs in order. The Gemara goes through this machlekes more be'in later on in the Masechta. So that's what Rebbe says. We don't bring down Rabbanan over here, but obviously the Rabbanan say that the Schush is not alien. So Rav Sheshes have bein the Rebbe, bein the Rabbanan have a misnabna. According to we're going to see. So Rav Sheshes holds that both the Rabbanan and Rebbe hold that she's misnabna. She gets worse and worse. She deteriorates. Rav Rebbe he misnabna, Rabbanan loy have misnabna. So Rabbi Yosef holds that the Rabbanan hold that there's no misnabna, which means that if she's walking around healthy and normal, looking after the meisaita, that's a raya that she wasn't mizana. That's a raya that she wasn't. No, that's very good. According to Rabbanan, the fact that she's normal and not damaged is it could be because of a sfus. And according to Sheshes, if she was looking normal, if she wasn't misnabna, then it must be that according to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yosef holds that Rabbi Yosef holds that. Oh, okay. So Rabbi Yosef holds that our mission is the Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan say that the mission according to Rabbi Yosef, our mission is the Rabbanan that say that she's not misnavna at all. Again, this is in Rabbi Yosef Shita, and therefore it's not a raya that the Edom don't let the water work, because maybe the schus didn't let the water work. According to Rav Sheshes, you can't say that the schus didn't let the water work, because even if the schus didn't let the water work, she would still have obvious signs of being tamei. According to Rav Sheshes. So Rav Sheshes learns by the fact that the Edom come afterwards, it means that the Edom don't let the water work. According to Rav Yosef, because the mission is the Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan holds she's not misnavin at all, it could be that even a schus is not letting the water work. That's the machlekes of Yosef and Rav Sheshes. Rav Shimon Amar ein schus toilet my marim the imata ein is schus toilet my marim. If you're going to say that you do that, if you're going to say that it is toilet, that there is a schus. You're going to let everyone drink, and no one's going to be afraid to drink the waters because they're going to say, "Oh, maybe I have a schos." The whole point of the Mayim Amarim is to clear her name. And Nebuch, this lady goes back home, and everyone says, "Oh, maybe she was Taka Mizana, but she did certain schosim, she did certain mitzvahs, she was whatever, so that's why she didn't end up getting blown up." So Rabbi Shimon says it doesn't make any sense. So the Isa, and if you're right, that what Yesh Edom Medina say Yam Nami Nami at the Moitzi Shemra al Tahavish Shasu Vehain Amrim Tameis how you. It's gonna say that you're gonna have the same issue with Adam. Now we don't say the first part because people are not gonna be toilet. People are not gonna be toilet in the Adam because they're not gonna assume that they have Adam. They're not gonna assume that they have Adam. Hold on. Yeah. They're not going to assume that they have Adam. So no one's going to say, oh, maybe I have an Adam I don't know about. But it's supposed to be told on. But the back end, they say like once the women come home and they don't blow up, people are still going to say that maybe it's not from not because she's tired, maybe it's because of the Adam. The Gemara, Lord Shimon, Kamrit, you ask me Kasha from Shimon Shita, Lord Shimon, the Chus Adam Nami Laitalia. He's not going to hold of Adam. He doesn't hold of Schos. Doesn't hold of Adam. It's not. But we're going in Rabbi the Rabbanan. That's not the issue. Masav Rav the following are minchas that if they get disrupted midway of the process, they get burnt. In other words, the idea is that a mincha that's kaddish, which means that goes into the klisharis and it's right to be makriv, then you can't be paid anymore because that's kedusha zagot. In that case, if the process stops in the middle after it goes into the klisharis, you can't be paid, then you have to burn it. Haimeres tamani. Again, this is after you put it into the keli. Haimeres tamani. After they put it in, she says, "I don't want to drink. I'm tamei." If the Adam comes and says she's tamei, the asu Adam. So that's in those two scenarios, the woman, the mincha gets burnt, and nobody burnt not on the mizbeach where it's supposed to be, but burnt like on the side, and is not used. And again, the Sotah process stops at this point. The asu, Adam amos. When do they come? If it's before they put into the klisharis and let them be paid it and let it go to chulin. The kaddish. Well, so it must be after it's kaddish. Now like this. If you're going to say that the waters do check a woman who has Eden that she was mizana, alama, why is it get? Well, I think it's a the idea is the same. Alama bas mekadosh makavi. Why do you burn it? It's right to be brought. In other words, there's nothing. The fact that there was Eden beforehand doesn't passel up the Sotah. The idea is if lechatchila the Sotah was never supposed to be brought because she has Eden, then and the Sotah was never going to be worked. This mincha was never going to be utilized correctly. Then it was a toast that it was put in, and it wasn't right for the mizbeach, and therefore we'll see later that if you put something in the toast or something that wasn't supposed to be done, even if you put it into the klisharis, it's not mekadosh. Allah bas mekadosh makavi v'chi kadosh meikar shaper kadosh u'mishum hachi menchasa. Oh no, my boy can I say Alma we see it's not Alma, it's Alma. Iyam b'shalom mayim boy can I say Alma we see bas mekadosh bas mekadosh mekaravi v'chi kadosh meikar shaper kadosh u'mishum hachi menchasa in the surface because the Adam don't start the process. Putting it into the klisharis was what was meant to be, so it's mamish kadosh. Iyam Ella, can I say when you put it into the klisharis, it wasn't meant to be. It was a mistake because the mayim were never going to work for her because she has Adam. We know that only after they come in. But the whole thing, no one did anything wrong during the process because we did the best we could at the moment, knowing what we knew. But when the Adam show up after it was put into the keli, we found out that when we put it in, it was betal, so it should come back out and we should be paid it. Hey, look, the Taz Kaddish with Hebel Chulin, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Mediskarta, Kegayin, Shazinza Be'azara, the Chikadish Meikara Shapa Kaddish, that she was Mizana, these Edom are coming from a different znus. It's a very interesting case. It's a pellet to me. I don't understand why it had to take a Gemara to say a Mishnah. This is a scenario, but she's Mizana after she's brought up as a Sotah. She's mizana in the Beis Hamikdash or right outside. How can you say she's mizana? She has escorts. Everything was she was mizana with those escorts. Fine, that's the thing. The Kahanim that are watching her were mizana with her. She needed to use the bathroom. They're standing in her cap, in her hat. They're standing on her. They're standing on her 24/7. She said, "Excuse me, I need to go to the bathroom." She went outside and she found someone outside and she was on with them. And then two Eidim saw from a distance, whatever it is, and they came to testify. Rav Papa says no. Really, it's a very normal case. She came to Bezin, and those two Eidim that we're talking about were the original Eidim the Eidim that were testifying on the original Maisa that she came to be butter on. So they come to be made on her to answer her on the original Bia. And your question was you should take a l'chulin because it's a suffix, because you see that it's not a suffix, it's betos that it was Mekadesh, and that's Uriah that Eidim Abaydik. And the Rabbanim is there, Shani Yamim Metzia Mekeli Mekli Sharis L'chol. People are not going to know what's going on over here. They see two Eidim come, but they don't know all the first of all, it doesn't have to even be two Eidim, it could be even one Eid. But they see all they see is the Khanim see a flower going to a klisharis, and then 2 minutes later it's being paida. So they're going to get confused, and they're going to think that after you put in something to the klisharis, you could still be paida, which is obviously not true. So we say for Gzeir D'Rabbanan we should just burn it. Masav Rav Mari on this idea of Rav Papa nitmas minchas ad shalei kitcha b'kli harehi kachal minchas v'tifta. If her mincha gets tamei, if it's before it went into the kli shares, then it's nifta. And if it's after it goes into the kli shares, then it gets burned. Kaddish akamitz kiddush akamitz v'lahispik lakriva at shemeis who I at shemeisahi harehi kachal minchas v'tisra. If before you didn't have a chance to be makar of the kamitz, and either he or her drops dead, then you have to burn the mincha. If after you were makar of the kaimitz, but you didn't have a chance to eat the shirayim left, then you could continue to eat it, even though one of them drops dead. Wash our safik bar mitchila kifra sveika v'halchala. And the whole point was to come to be Mavara Suffolk, and it did what it was supposed to do. In other words, it allowed us to go to the next process. It happened to be that they weren't allowed to finish it. They ended up dying in the middle, and it stopped for something else. But the mincha was done kalacha and kuroi, and everything was good. So therefore, the Khanim could eat the mincha. If Edom come and say that Shitaka was Mazana, after we put into the bowl, the mincha is nisra. Nimtza Edom Zaymin, if these Edom, not the Edom that come now and say that she was Tamei, but the Edom that brought her here, the Edom Stira, Rashi says, if they were brought in to be Edom Zaymin, which means that this whole thing was a scam and she wasn't ever meant to be here, she's not a real Saita, so you see that what? So that mincha goes to chulin. You see that what? Even there's a scenario that even after it goes into the bowl, into the klisharis, if we figure out that this whole thing was a talos, then she does not. Then it's nisraf. Then it goes out to chulin and it's not nisraf. And you just told me, Rav Papa, that the reason why in my case you have to be in the case in the top of the Amid, you have to be nisraf is not because it's not a raya that having Edom that just didn't show up passes it's a right that having Edom that didn't show up doesn't passel, because if it passeled, it would be burnt. It wouldn't be burnt. He said it wouldn't be burnt anyway because of this. He says it again. The top Mishnah said, the top of the Gemara said that if by the fact that it has to be burnt if when Edom come after it's put into the bowl is a raya that Edom are baidik, because if they weren't baidik, then we should allow this to go to chulin. So our Papa said no, it's not a raya, because it could be that it's supposed to go to chulin, but we just want to make a gzer not to burn stuff after, not to be paid stuff after it goes into klisharis. But over here you see that we do allow you to burn stuff to be paid stuff that after it goes into klisharis. But the Gemara says it's not a good kasha. Why? Edom Zayman comment. You asked me kasha from Edom Zayman. Edom Zayman called Islu. There's a big call by Edom Zayman. So everyone knows that this whole thing was a taos, and she should never have been brought to the mizbeach to the for this, and it was Mekadosh B'Tos, which allows you to be paid. So that has a huge call. Whereas if they just come into Edom or 1 and says she was tamei after the mincha was put into the klisharis, we wouldn't allow it to be paid even if it was done in a legit way. Which means even if it was baidik, even if it did stop you from being baidik, you would still not allow them to be paida. Tanya can say the Rav Sheshes for loy mitame. There's a right to Rav Sheshes, but not with his reasoning. We have an alternative drasha. Tahira, it says in the pasuk Tahira. What's the pasuk over here? The imloy nitma ishu Tahira he the niksa v'nizra zera. So in that case, after she drinks, if she is tar and she wasn't tummy, and she's tar, so the fact that it says tar, right, it's extra. And the vav is also actually condition both these things. The higher of Elisha yesh lo edim b'medina siyam. The higher of Elisha tells law is chos. So the word tahira is memayit these two cases from the waters helping her. He Elisha sheyisu v'yitnu ba moitzes b'levana. There's another scenario where the waters don't work. Is if everyone's talking about it that she's mizana, then it's not that's not what the waters are coming for. The waters are coming for saying something that's a suffix, not something that everybody knows to be true or is common sprach. Rabbi Shimon says Nehi devav loy darsh. Rabbi Shimon doesn't have to be darshan the vav to say about schos again because the Gemara is asking the question essentially. Rabbi Shimon over here said sai edim we assume and he says beferish that that the schos isn't entitled. So he doesn't want to dash in the vav. Is fine. But what's he going to do about the Edom aren't the Edom aren't Tyla? The Edom aren't ma'akiv. Again, we have a brayso that says the Edom are ma'akiv. The Edom that everything the ha'ika yesh la'Edom b'medina siyam v'ika v'v'dash v'ika yesh la'Edom. You still have this Joshua of Tama that she has Edom that doesn't work. And the Gemara, so Enechanami would agree that Edom don't work. That if she add Edom b'din sayam, it wouldn't work. The kind of upshot is your whole svar because his going to be mitzvahs on. My son is calling. You're going to be mitzvahs on the women that come back. He says most of the shchicha. No one's going to say is because sorry. Okay, still there. The reason why he said it's not shchicha, so no one's going to blame. No one's going to blame the Edom. No one's going to assume that she had Edom, and if she comes back clean, they're going to assume that she's takatar. She was not Shaz Mazana. Okay, let's go to Mishnah Maita. So what's the process? Malicha the Bezdin. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Ba'ala Nemarala. So the Mishnah says we take her to the Bezdin, local Bezdin, and then we appoint to Talmidei Chacham to take her to the Bezdin Agadol and to Yerushalayim, and we point to Edom that we should watch him and her, and Rabbi Yehuda says that's not needed. Trei for the Gemara, Trei two and her, and two and him and the husband. Haklasa, it's three people. Lady Messiah, the Rav, the Amar Yehuda Rav, Leishana El Ba'ir Al B'derech Ad Ekash Leisha. Rabbi Yehuda was talking about Hilchos Zicha. He's saying that on the road you need at least three people. Shem Yitzarach Echad Mehem V'Nachva. In case one needs to go to the bathroom. So that's Rav's Shita with Yichud. So we want to bring a raya from our Mishnah because our Mishnah said we need two Talmidei Chacham plus the husband. That's three. That's like what Rav said. It's not a raya. You need two. You want to have two Edom that if he's takamazan with her, there's two Edom that can report to Bezdin what happened, or that could clear his name and say no. We know that he didn't live with her. From the fact that the Mishnah says Tamid Chacham in Kuli Amalai must be that right. No one else, only the Chacham Dafka. Lema Messiah Idach the Messiah the Idach the Rab the Amar Yudam Rab Loisha and Kashem Al Putzma Filasar Nami Lai. Even so, again, also Rab says Allah that if they're prutzim, even 10 men and 1 woman is not they're not allowed to be alone. So we see the fact that there's Tamid Chacham here, that means that they're kosher, and that's why they're allowed. Then there's a story that the 10 men prutzim walked out with 1 lady on a bed, and they were over Avera, and so you see that he from that I don't know from that story he passing, or you see such an Indian that even 10 prutzim is they're not to be left alone without with 1 woman. But everything we're like the other they have to be able to warn him, and it doesn't mean I don't think Hasra, like we learned in the last Masechta Makkos, are the dinim of Hasra. It means that they should warn him appropriately and teach him how to behave and let him know what the repercussions of his actions are going to be. Not that because it's only a lot he gets. Maybe Taka is a mamash Hasra. I think it's more just to warn him that he should behave appropriately. Rabbi Yehuda says that her Bala is Neman. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda, I'm a Bala Neman. Man neither she bekares. Bala Neman. We don't have this Indian that a person's not going to be miyakad with their wife when she's in Nida. So you see that a woman, you see that a man is believed to be with his wife. It's trusted to be with his wife when she's in Nida, which is Chai bekares. Cited she belav like Chal Shekin. V'Rabbanan he anasenas. From your very kavachayim, I'm going to upshell you. Neither the kares chamir le umehem. We know that he's not going to be ever neither because it's kares. So I love le chamir le mehem. So he's not so makbid. It's only a lav, and he has to be warned more carefully. He has to be watched more carefully. Yehuda mekavachayim ma'isila. Talking about Yehuda mekavachayim ma'isila. Did he bring a kavachayim? Yehuda mikroi ma'isila. He brought a pasuk. The Tanya v'hevia ishes ishtei elakayim. And a Torah we learn out from this pasuk. Ha'ish maybe as ishtei aval. Maybe it's ishtay. So the Tanakhama says that Ikra did midiraisa man's believed to bring his wife, but we decided to point to the Mechacham to make things easier. Ends at some point. A wife goes to the mikveh, and then husband's mutter again. So it's not such a the sugya paspasali. It's not an indefinite issa. Over here, she may be indefinitely issa. We don't know because she end up getting her name cleared. But for right now, from this point, it's indefinite. There's no way to know that there's a tzadhet over here. But I'm a man genuvim talk and taking something that's. So you have 2 aspects. You have paspasal. You also Mayim Genuvim Yom Yeah, Mayim Genuvim Yom also should apply by the nida. But over here, it's indefinite. You have Mayim Genuvim Yom without the idea of paspasal that makes the Isser Saita much more appealing. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Min HaTorah. Rabbi Yehuda says Rabbi Yehuda Amar Min HaTorah Ish maybe as Ishtay Elakayin Shenem Behavi Ish as Ishtay. Amalu Kavachayim. So you see that he brings a pasuk, not the kavachayim that we said originally. I'm thinking Mara Amalu kavachayim. Originally said a kavachayim. Bereisha. But Percho he has the kash on it. Adam Lakra. Fact Gemara, another question. So again, he started with kavachayim. They didn't like it, so he said a pasuk. Rabbi Yehuda Hainu Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda Tanakama say the same thing. What's enough kamina? Rabbi Yehuda does not say Aval Amru. The Chacham Tanakama says Aval Amru. In other words, Ikra din, you're allowed to bring your wife by yourself. But we say that you should have 2 people. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Ikra din, you're allowed to, and there's no reason to change that. Doctor, the Mishnah right there. How you mal nice to the bezin and agadah. So we continue the process of Saita. They bring it to the bezin and agadah. B'Yishalayim umaymin ala kederach shemaymin al eidin nefashos. V'amel biti harbe yain isa harbe schayk isa harbe yaldas isa harbe shchenim maroim isa. I say this, so they warn her, they intimidate her the same way they intimidate Eidim when it comes to din nefashos, and they make them aware that what you're about to do is a very, very intense thing, and it's not easily undone. Over here, similarly, she's saying, you should like don't drink. It's you made a mistake. You had a lot of wine. You had a good time. It was a the neighborhood, whatever. It wasn't your fault. And don't admit it so that you should have rachmanis kilo on I say the Shemaya Gadol Shenichtav B'Kedusha Shlo Yimcha, right? Because part of the process is that the name Hashem's name gets erased in the parsha of Sotah, in the May Sotah. So do it for Hashem's sake. So Yimcha Alamayim. Amar Lefneim Dvam She'en Kedei L'Shaman He B'Chol Mishpachas Beis Aviyah. They say things that are not appropriate for the hearing. What does that mean? They compare her and they say, oh, if you admit, it's like it's like you're acting like the others, or like you're acting like Yehuda and Ruvain, even though she did something obviously very problematic, and she was over even by just being alone with this guy. So it's not like she's not coming from a place kedusha, but still, in order to give her the impetus to admit, we compare her to people that she shouldn't be compared to. If she says, I sin, I'm tamei, tmeani sheveres ksubasa. They write a shtar for ksuba. And she goes out. And if she maintains her innocence, Malad Isa the Shar, Mezach Shal Pesach Shar, Nikna Shasham, Mashkanes Hasaitis, Umatahanes Hayaladas, Umatahanes Hamatzirin. And this is where they do the Saitis and the Yaladas. The Matar, I think they bring the Karbanis to Yaladas, not sure what Matar This means Umatahanes Hamatzirin, and they do the Mitzvah process. The Kain Eichas Brigada, and again, this is the part that's supposed to demean her and cause her tremendous embarrassment. The Kohen rips her clothing, grabs her clothing. Im nikru nikru, im nifru nifru. If it rips, if it shreds, if she gets exposed, it doesn't matter. Achu megalas liba, until they expose her chest. The soiser Sarah, and they undo her hair. Especially they undo her braids. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, imhaya liba no lehaya megalav, imhaya Sarah na lehaya soiser. If she had a nice chest or nice hair, they would not expose these things, not to cause issues for the kahanim. The Pechakuna watching, other people watching. Isim is Kasib Levanim. She was coming dressed in nice white clothing. This Kasib is Shchayim. They put on black clothing, not so fine. If she had golden, if she had jewelry, the katliyais and a chokers and his manam nose rings with tebais and rings, we take them off of her. This whole process is to degrade her and to strip away her self-confidence. Maybe mitzri, and afterwards they tie a rope around her chest to hold up the clothing. Again, she shouldn't walk around completely exposed the whole time, but it shouldn't be like a tight fitted clothing. She should feel still like exposed and not fully dressed and confident. She's going to get emboldened by their presence, and she's going to not want to admit. They shouldn't act like this. So they want to scare away all the women. It's another reason why they treat her in this horrible way, is to show the other women, if you're going to act the way she's acting, this is your treatment. So, how do we know that what? How do we know that it has to, that how do we know that you have to go to Bezdin Yerushalayim? They do this whole process called, and refers to it as the Torah. This is talking about Zaki Mamre that rebels against the Bezdin Agadol. So obviously over there it's talking about the Bezdin Agadol. The Bezdin Agadol came up a second. He goes home and he passes his way. So it's talking about the Bezdin Agadol. So it's called if it's the Bezdin 71, it's also 71. We intimidate her for a minute. So over here it's Mashma the Mishnah. We only intimidate her not to drink. Right? That this whole sprach of, oh, you did it by mistake, whatever. All that to get her to admit is to get her to not drink. Just like we try to convince her to drink, we also try to convince her, just like we convince her not to drink, we also convince her to drink, which is not what we said. So again, how do we do that? How do we convince her to drink? I'm like, if you're 100% sure Amadi al stand on your certainty of v'shti and drink lafish ein mayim marim diamond ella l'sam yavish. It's like a dry medicine. Shamanach al basar chayit. You open it up, put it on raw flesh. Im yesh shamaka, not raw, I'm not saying raw flesh, live flesh. Im yesh shamaka mechalcha v'yard. shamaka in Moilin club. If it is something with the heel, it heals, and if not, it doesn't do any damage. So you're not gonna get hurt by drinking. No, they push her to drink. I mean, more like kasha kan koydim shem b'nimchak megillah, shem b'nimchak megillah kan la'achar shem b'nimchak megillah. After before the megillah, our Mishnah is talking about before the megillah, which is there's no reason to incentivize her to push her to encourage her to drink. But after the Hashem's name is erased, now we already want her to drink, and we say that she's just getting cold feet, but really she's tar at that point. Again, at no point is the point of the water to punish her. It's meant to be mavar the suffix. We say things in front of it that, let's say, not right for a ton of things that happen in Torah. So this pasuk is the ear, and it references a story about Yehuda and Reuben. Not fine, two separate stories. This is passing in the and it's talking about Yehuda Hada V'lai Bush. Yehuda admitted that he was the one who slept with Tamar and he wasn't embarrassed. What was the end of that? So he ended up going to Alam Haba. Reuven Hada V'lai Bush. Reuven was admitted that he was the one who moved Yaakov Avinu's tent into Bilhah's tent. And he wasn't embarrassed. In fact, what was this guy? We just said they went to Alam. What did they get in Alam Hazeh? So the end of the passage that we just said was Lahem Levadim Nitna Aretz. The land was given only to them. Nitna Aretz. The loy avaz zar b'seichel, and a stranger did not pass in between them. Because when Moshe Rabbeinu gave the bracha, we learned this Gemara in Megillah, I believe. And then he says Reuven v'zayis Yehuda, Bishlam Yehuda Ashachan the ID Dechsev Vayikar Yehuda v'Yam Tzidka Mimeni. El Reuven Minalan the ID Amar Shmuel V'Nachmen Amar Yechon and Mind Dechsev Yechi Reuven Al Yamos v'zayis Yehuda. That's what the pasuk is. Yechi Reuven Al Yamos v'zayis Yehuda. We had this pasuk in Megillah. It doesn't say it. I don't know why it doesn't bring that from Megillah, but I'm pretty sure it's from Megillah. Okay. So what's this pasuk? This is Moshe Rabbeinu giving a bracha. So what shaykh is Reuven and Yehuda? So he says Kalei Shanam Shahayi saw Midbahaya Tamisha Yehuda Megul Galin Ba'aron Acha Amid Moshe Bikesh Lo Rachim Amar Lefan Rebbeinu Shalom Mi Garm Reuven Shahida Yehuda. There's Yehuda, and this is what Yehuda gets. This he's walking around. He's all finished all these years. Miyad Shama Hashem Kal Yehuda Ali Barel Shafa. All the his Avarim went back into their sockets, and they realign. But I have a the Rekia, and so they didn't allow him into Shemaim, into Yeshiva, and so the pasuk continues about Imai to Vienu. But I have a Yada Mashkul Umatrich, he didn't Bishmaita, he didn't know how to learn back and forth, but had Rabbanon. So it said Yada Rabbi Lai. He couldn't paskin, whatever that means. But the next part of the is the mitzvah of Tia B'Shleima. So fine. So that's a passage that Yehuda. That's a passage that shows that Yehuda got schar from the Reuven, and this fact that Moshe Rabbeinu put Reuven and Yehuda together is referenced when it says what does it say this? And the Zar, they each got the land. It means that Yehuda got Malchus. He ruled Yerushalayim, and Reuven was the first one to get Halakha. So that's what it means they got the land more than anyone else. The end of Bishleim, sorry, Bishleim is the next word. Is the next Gemara. So that's ended that passage that shows that Moshe Rabbeinu davened for Yehuda because of the fact of discussed that Reuven was mighty because of him, and it helped him get into Alam Haba. There's a reason why Yehuda was mighty. Why the story is that Tamar was about to get burned because she was Mizana, because she came back 3 months pregnant while she was waiting for I forgot his name again, but Yehuda's son to be Miyabim, and they came. They wanted to burn her. And so he had to step up and to save her life. Why did he just admit to Zabeir? The Ma'afet Chata. You can't just talk about your Aver. It's not a AA meeting. You don't just talk about what you're dealing with. And the Gemara, his brother should not get accused of doing that avera, so he took the blame for it. Have a beautiful night. Thank you everyone for joining us.